Welcome everybody to today's Lunch and Learn. I think this is recording now, but yep. And appreciate everybody being here. Our first diversity program of the year. We're going to be having 3 more of these, and Dan may talk about it a little bit later. But first, let's do this before I actually introduce the panelists. Let's start back here with Steve. And let's go around the room. If you say who you are and what organization or business that you're with.
Steve McElwain, Program Director for the Auckland Union Cabarrus County.
Jim Holmes with Raymond James. Rod Beard, we have 3 companies, Charlotte Payroll, Charlotte Health Share, and Hemp Payroll. We do CBD.
Laura Rosetta with Lakeland. Valerie Cricklow with Opportunities for Adventure.
Tracy Madison Brandon, Commissioner for Town of Davidson.
Melanie Houston with the 1750 Group.
Dan Houston with 1750 Group and the Diversity Council at the Chamber.
We're going to introduce the panelists, so we'll go right over here.
I'm Star Horton from Community School of Davidson. Samara McMillan from Community School of Davidson.
Kim Gordon, Lake Norman Water Tree.
Karen Dorchi, Hot Dog Purchase.
Alan Morgan, Morgan Offensive.
Cheryl Banks, a member of the Diversity Council and also a 2016 retired from the federal court system.
Okay. And we have 2 virtually. Angela, you want to say who you are? Who you with?
Hey there, I'm Angela Sweat. I'm with the McIntosh Law Firm. I do the marketing, public relations, community relations, and have worked with Dan on a number of things. So I'm glad to be here.
Amy?
And good afternoon, everybody. I'm Tammy Thomas. I am with North Carolina Lines Incorporated. Also, you may have heard it as Camp Dogwood. We are a facility in Sherrills Ford that services does services for the blind and visually impaired throughout North Carolina. We also offer a meeting and retreat and conference center when our camp is not in session to help fund our missions.
Thank you very much, Tammy. The program today is actually sponsored by Kim and David with LKN Water Tree. Kim, you want to say a little bit about your product and what you guys do? I'd love to. Thank you.
Well, we opened a year ago, next week in Mooresville. We're on Plaza Drive. We make our own water in the store. It's the cleanest water you'll find around. All natural, made in the store, alkaline water. This water has a pH of at least 9.5, which is very high pH. We sell our water by the gallon. So if you bring your jugs in, we'll fill them up, or I'll deliver to your business. Come and see us. It's good for you. It's good for detoxing. It's good for weight loss. It's good for your heart. It's good for your every skin.
You had me at wait.
And I think you have been very involved in our WINS program.
I am. That's my favorite thing to do.
So appreciate your sponsorship of that as well. We are the food is compliments of Chick-fil-A, so please tell Joe. I think Joe's traveling, but do tell him we really appreciate that. I've got the bios on our speakers, and I'm going to go ahead and read this information because it's really good and I don't want to miss anything. So Melanie Miller joined the ARC of Union Cabarrus as the executive director in 2015. She has spent 20 years in the nonprofit community in the greater Charlotte area. Prior to joining the ARC, Melanie was the director of program services at the Alzheimer's Association, the Western Carolina chapter, and spent many years with the Girl Scouts, Hornets Nest Council, working in all aspects of membership, programming, special events, volunteer training, and development. Currently, she serves as the past president of the Kiwanis Club of Monroe, secretary of the ARC of North Carolina's Conference of Executives, as a member of Union County Chamber of Commerce Women in Business. She's also involved with the Union County Chamber of Commerce Diversity and Inclusion Committee and Union County Public Schools Special Needs Advisory Council. Originally from Spartanburg, South Carolina, she graduated at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill with Bachelor of Arts in Journalism and Mass Communication. Our next speaker is also Kecia Myers. She has been with Chick-fil-A for 7.5 years. She's had the honor of serving with 10 grand openings through the U.S. and Canada. Loves helping and watching team members grow as individuals during their Chick-fil-A journey. She's new to North Carolina as of January, and she's moved to Davidson with her dog, best friend, Bailey. We also have Christian Lursen. He was born in Charlotte. Terry and Jane Lursen graduated from North Mecklenburg High School, so you're a local product. Okay. And also a graduate of Appalachian State University in 2014 with a degree in finance and banking. After graduation, Christian did a ministry internship with the Reformed University Fellowship at Delta State University in Cleveland. Upon completion of his internship, he developed a vision for business ownership where he can pursue job opportunities, invest in the community. Christian is in the pursuit of fulfilling that vision with his own Chick-fil-A one day and has a passion for investing in young people and developing leaders. Karen Toney, who I've known for a long time, a graduate of leadership Lake Norman. But Toney is a manager of Ben & Jerry's Ice Cream in Davidson. She graduated from the veterinary technician degree from Fairmont State University. I didn't know that. And moved to Columbia, South Carolina, where she worked as a veterinary technician at a small animal clinic and Riverbank Zoo. In 1992, Karen decided it was time for a change of scenery and weather and moved to Mooresville, where she worked at a busy 4-doctor Mooresville Animal Hospital. Being new to the area, she decided to get a part-time job at a new ice cream shop opening in Davidson called Ben & Jerry's, and has been there ever since. Karen has spent 27 years in Davidson and selling super premium ice cream while being fully engaged in the community. She loves the community and engaging her staff in town in giving ways. She is the past president of the Davidson Merchants Association and the town of Davidson Marketing Group, participates in the Christmas in Davidson. She won the Lake Norman Small Business Person of the Year in 2000. She was the first ever recipient of the Manager of the Year award from Ben & Jerry's in 2000, and again in 2018, and receiving a special recognition in 2015. She became the first ever 3-time winner by receiving the award again in 2021, and she's active in her faith community as well. Anna Davis and I go back a long ways. I don't have a bio in front, but I can tell you a little bit about Anna. She's been a longtime member of the Chamber of Commerce. She did specialty items for many, many years for the Chamber of Commerce and involved in our Rotary Club here in Mecklenburg. Her son, Jack Davis, is the president of our Kiwanis Action Club. And for those of you who may not be familiar with that, that is a group of young people, the ages of 18 years of age or older. We meet here at the Chamber of Commerce on the 4th Friday of every month, 7 o'clock. And we do special needs, we do special projects and projects within the community, networking, a chance for them to get together and fellowship and have a good time. So that's a little bit about Anna. Our MC today, Dan Houston, is with the John Maxwell Speaking Bureau. He is one of our trainers. He is the chairman of the Diversity Council, and I'll let him tell you a little bit more about himself. I want to thank everybody for being here today. This is a great program that we've lined up. Again, Dan's probably going to share what the other 3 are later, but I'm going to turn this over. And Dan, if you want to ask questions of our panelists.
I do. I mean, such a great panel, so much. And again, I echo Bill when he says thanks for being here. And this is a really good topic. And as you know, when we think about something like Diversity Council, what I like to tell people all the time, some people misjudge what a Diversity Council is about. They always think it's about race, but it really is beyond race. It's about, how do we get to know people who might be different? And how do we then show respect? And how do we treat people as human beings? And how do we love folks? How do you put that in? Because that's one of my values. How do we love people as human beings? So we have a Diversity Council that's really interested in expanding the definition of what we call diversity in this particular county, really among the chamber members and businesses here. But we have 2 basic functions that we like to think about. One of those is that we want to make people aware of diversity, inclusion, and equity. We want to make people aware of that. But the second thing is that we want to talk about this whole notion of what is the benefits of looking at the world through a diversity lens? What's the benefits of that? That's why I'm so excited about this panel, because when we think about people with disabilities, there's a lot of myths, there's a lot of apprehension, there's a lot of uncertainty about people who are living with disabilities. And one of the things that you guys have done for the community of disabilities is what you've done is you've made them not only visible and you talked about them in terms of how should people address them, for example. but what's the real benefit of businesses interacting with people who live with disabilities? And Melanie, I wonder if you would start off just a little bit by answering the question, and then I'd like you to get into what ARC does. But the question here is simply, how should people who are not a person with disability see people with disability? What do they call them? How should they interact with them? How do they not make mistakes? Or how do they feel more comfortable around folks who have disabilities? I know that's a lot.
That's a lot, but
But,
we'll get there.
We'll get there. And panelists, anybody at any point, just jump in. We want this to be a flowing conversation. So don't wait for me to call on you. If you feel something like Melanie says something that you really resonate with, please just jump in. So Melanie, why don't you start?
Sure. So I think one of the things that it's such a great question. And this is beyond disability, but I think in the disability world, we call it person first language. And so someone is a person first who may happen to have a disability. So I'm a person first and I happen to wear glasses. You know, you hopefully would not point across the table and go, hey, glasses chick. You know, that's, you know, we would not do that because we recognize glasses are just a part of who I am. It is not the main thing about me. And so I would encourage everyone to think about that with a disability. This is a person who may happen to have Down syndrome. This is not a Down syndrome person. This is a person who may have an intellectual disability. This is not a disabled person. And so it's just kind of maybe switching that mindset of thinking about the person first. And so beyond that, I think and when you talk about not making a mistake, we're going to make mistakes. Everybody, even those of us that have been in this field, and I've got some educators here too, you know, we've been in this field a long time and may say something that may kind of ruffle the feather. And I think it's just being honest and saying, you know what, I'm not sure, you know, what's the best way for me to address you? What's the best way? What do you prefer? There's a lot of people that like and prefer the term special needs, and then there's people who don't. And you can just be honest and say, you know, this is something that, you know, I have heard, have been comfortable with. How does that feel to you? And then that person can say that. So I think that I'll start there, and then other folks may want to jump around, and then other parts of your question if you want to come back to. So.
And I think that one of the things that has helped my life a lot is this one sentence. I'm gonna tell everybody this. It's not a matter of if you make a mistake. It's just a matter of when. And don't beat yourself up when you make a mistake, because we're all human beings and we're all gonna do that. So please jump in.
Yeah, I'll go. And on behalf of Joe, he wanted to be here, but he's probably the busiest man I know. So he was not able to be here, unfortunately, but we're certainly glad to be able to kind of be here in his stead. But, you know, in my experience, I mean, the fact of the matter is, I mean, we're all human. Like, you know, piggybacking off of what you said, it's like we all have our strengths and our weaknesses. I mean, that doesn't make us better or worse than anyone else. And I know the few people that we have that have, you know, special needs or disabilities, like we just see them as people. You know, like we see it as an opportunity to, as we all need to be invested in, it's an opportunity to invest in them, and they give us a lot back. I mean, like they, you know, people who struggle with maybe different things than what we might struggle with, but like they have so much like joy and energy to be in an environment where they can have an impact. Like they have a direct impact on what the results that we're able to get, you know, as a restaurant. And so I love working with people. That's why I'm in this business. And they're people, you know, and they inspire me. I mean, we have one lady right now who she has a lot of like health issues, and because of, you know, a birth defect that she had. But it's like she's getting her degree. She's like she's had surgery, impending surgery is going to be coming up, and like that does not drag her down in the slightest. And it's very inspiring for me, but also a lot of the younger people that we employ. And so they give us a lot back for sure. And so I'm happy to be able to work alongside some people who just are just a little different. And like that's to be celebrated the way I kind of see it. And so, you know, it's I generally feel like they do more for us than what we do for them in terms of their wage or whatnot. So that's, I don't remember the question. What was it? I don't even remember.
And this is,
but-
I want to come back to Melanie in a second, but Ann, I want you, here's a question for you, and talk a little bit about your son. But there's a lot of people that believe if you have a disability, you need to work through that. You need to be able to overcome that. What would you say to people who say that?
Well, you kind of do in certain ways. My son is 24 years, he'll be 24 years old in December. He works at Biddy and Bo's Coffee in Charlotte, and they hire predominantly people with special needs. So you go in there and at first you kind of notice that they're special needs, but it's just kind of like that. You forget about it because it's such a cool place to be. But yeah, you do have to work through. You have to like, as a parent of someone of a child with special needs, it's different. You put them through school, most kids like, we're going to college, the parents work with them, which college you're going to go to. And with somebody with special needs, you have to take a lot of little detours. It's like
As a
the road
parent.
as a parent, yes, and help them. They all have their desires and their strengths. They have weaknesses, but you need to focus on their strengths and help them through that, and just help them become better people.
And Melanie, what did you find out about that? Please tell us about ARC. I didn't even get you off. People need to know about your organization.
Sure. Well, and I think, first of all, if I can have just a few seconds to explain why I'm the ARC of Union Cabarrus, but yet we do work in Mecklenburg County. It's one of these things that our name has not quite kept up with how we have expanded. There used to be an ARC in Mecklenburg County and they unfortunately closed. But Steve, who you guys were introduced to earlier, Steve works with our adult programs, and he worked with our agency in Union and Cabarrus and also in Charlotte and Mecklenburg County. And so we had done so much work that when that organization closed, we were very happy to be able to step in and support the Action Club here in Lake Norman that Bill's talking about, and 2 other adult programs in Charlotte. So that's a large part of what we do. Our adult services, self-advocate services. We are not a healthcare agency or anything like that. What we do, honestly, is really help people live the life that they choose and help people solve problems, to just, kind of put it in a nutshell. The Action Club program, so that is where adults with disabilities can come do the things that you and I may take for granted, being members of Kiwanis or Rotary or, some sort of organization. Folks in this population typically have community service done to them or for them. And this is their opportunity to show that they can do and plan the same types of things that we can. Those leadership skills, the soft skills that those of us who employ people look for are what folks develop in these types of programs. So just some other work we do, we have some parent support groups. We will work with in the school system. This service is not in Mecklenburg County. We don't have the resources at this time for that. But in our other counties, we work with the school systems for students who have individual education programs. And we will be part of that IEP team as necessary to help advocate for the best interest of the child. And the stuff that you were talking about, you're solving problems and detours, we help families with that, who have questions about what to do when my child graduates, how to help them find a job, how do you navigate the government benefit system, which is a 4-hour process just to talk about it. So it's a lot of very, very individualized work, and we're just very blessed to be able to do that and help support folks in that journey. Yes.
What does ARC stand for?
That is a great question. And so ARC originally, in the 1950s, when ARC was created, it was an acronym, and it was the Association for Retarded Children. Now, of course, that's language that has definitely changed over the years. But when the ARC started, and it was by parents, a group of people who come together, which is the only way anything gets done in the world. A group of people came together because in the 1950s, children with intellectual developmental disabilities did not have an automatic right to go to school. They did not have the right to be employed. And so this group came together to change that. So that's how ARC got started. And then of course, over time, as language changed, and the word retarded, thankfully, fell out of favor, it had been known as the ARC for so long that even though it's not an acronym, that just stuck. But thank you for giving some time to share that.
I wonder just a little bit about the American Disability Act. And I'm just curious, always curious about why do we need to legislate an act like that? Now, since you went back in the history, talk a little bit about that. Would you mind, Melanie?
So one thing that's kind of funny is that some of us may think, the ADA has been around forever. It's only been a little over 30 years. I was already in college over 30 years ago, and I'm very young. When you think about things, it's taken a long time to get here. And unfortunately, the reason why is that a lot of times, there are some people that don't want to do things just because they don't want to do them. But a lot of times getting past that, this is what we've always done, it's okay. And so having that legislation has really kind of opened it up that, no, it's not really okay. It's not really okay that you have a public building that 20% of your population may not be able to access. That's not okay. To have a restroom that a lot of your clients may not be able to access. That's not okay. So just some of those very kind of basic accommodations, it helped our world to be more of an even playing field. People with disabilities overcome every single day. And that's a strength for business. Y'all got a whole population of folks that are used to solving problems on a daily basis. We really need people to have to figure out how to go see, the business they need to see, who need to figure out how to use something as basic as use the restroom. We need to take those problems away, and that's what the ADA has really helped do.
Some of those barriers. And Karen, I know you, one of my favorite stores in Davidson. I won't tell y'all why that's my favorite store. It's one of my favorite stores, and I go by it every other day. I go by, I get my hair cut right next to Rayford's, the barbershop, been there for 30 years. And I go by and I look at that Ben & Jerry's and I think about my wife. And I'm trying to figure out, Bill, how can I just sneak in there without my wife knowing? And every single time I go in there and I come home, she knows I've been in Ben & Jerry's. And I'm still trying to figure that out. Karen, what do you do? What do you do?
You can see it on your face.
Why did you decide that you guys were, what's Ben & Jerry's, I don't want to say policy, but what is your value around people with disabilities? I guess it's a better word than policy.
Well, we got involved. I would love to say it was my brilliant idea, but it wasn't. Connie Wessner from Community School Davidson, who also used to be on the town board in Davidson, who's been around, approached me and said, hey, how would you like to hire someone? And if anything comes from Connie, you got to know it's a little fishy. It's just, like, of course, I want to hire people all the time. So this was about 8 years ago, I think. Longer. And so she approached me about this student because Community School of Davidson has an established program where they work with some of these kids, and they actually keep them past, like, a normal 18-year-old high school. They will keep them as long as 21, as long as they can, to give them the benefit of the structure. So our first employee was Ryan, and I really had no idea what I was getting into because I thought, he'll clock in, we'll have to do a few things. And that first day, it took most of the whole hour just to get him to clock in. He had to come through the door, to come behind the counter, to put in 4 numbers that we had told him because of his particular circumstances. And it was extremely challenging for me. And what my idea of what it would be to train someone or to hire someone. So it definitely grew me. It grew me as a leader, it grew me as a person. Just really seeing things differently. Not that I had ever not thought about it, but I just hadn't really had that much experience with it. So he was Ryan was our first. And so ever since then, the Community School of Davidson has this program. And then we take 1 or 2 students every year. They bring us new ones. They come and work for 1 hour a week. It's a class schedule. And we now have a kid who didn't actually come to us through the program, but his mother approached us after and said, hey, would you consider, letting him as an adult outside the school system kind of be in this program that we created.
Really?
And so we did that, and now he is a paid employee. He has been great. He works 2 days a week. He gets tips along with everybody. And for his own growth recently, to get to there, he's had to learn to get in an Uber, because the parents couldn't get in there. So he's getting stretched. And he's a great employee when you all were saying different abilities. When we have staff meetings, he's the only one of the students taking notes. Now, maybe he's doing that because he personally doesn't retain well. But I tell you what, every time I talk about something I want to change, he's the guy that changes it. Not these other punk high schoolers. He's very tuned in, like he really wants to do a great job. Sometimes it's hard when I have to correct him, like sometimes it crushes him. And at times I feel bad about doing it, but then I also know it's best for him, and he always changes. So,
I would love to know what his duties are there.
Well, and again, I don't know if this would be rude, but he's very high functioning. So he does everything. He makes waffle cones, he rings up the register, he scoops. Now, he would rather not scoop. He would rather dip waffle cones in the back, but he will do anything you ask. He likes clear instructions. He's made me a better leader, because there are times you think people get it, or, oh, go sweep. That should be self-explanatory. No. So he's made me like slow down and think, okay, what are the parts to this task? And it's not a bad thing to tell, normal functioning people those same things, because they won't ask for clarification. They don't want to look bad. They're too cool for that. They're too smart for that. Right. So he will do about anything. There are a few things that he would rather not. He doesn't like making waffle cones because it's hot. I mean, none of us, I'm used to it, but he interacts with the customers. You might be able to tell if you talk to him long enough, but he gets excited. Like sometimes I have to, when he gets excited, he's like, oh, thanks for coming, everybody, thank you. I'm like, okay, bring it down a little. Because they go, what? So he's great. And then with the Community School of Davidson, once they graduate, some are more on the side of the scale that they would not be helpful to hire. It probably wouldn't be the best fit, but certainly, we could find something.
I think it's finding that fit for each individual child, I think everyone has, I guess you can call it handicapable. They have, there's something they can do, you just have to find, and that's where you're trying to work through it again, you gotta find their strengths and really work with that and build on those.
And it's a balance, because we're trying to be a profit-making business. And if we're not a profit-making business, we can't.
It might not be Ben and Jerry's, it might be somewhere else,
Right.
Just trying to find that.
But so, like if it's a volunteer, that we can work in a lot easier, than to have to pay. Because to be a profit-making business, then we can do these other things.
Yeah, that's true. And that's, again, I like that about Ben and Jerry's. It's always been a mission to get back to the community. And so that's why I don't mind going by there and gaining a little weight. But tell me about the, Chick-fil-A one more time about not only your experience, but how did you come to to employ, because you guys really, I mean, I think of all the stores that I've been into, I've noticed that you guys just have folks at the front line.
Mhm.
And I don't know what you do about customer service, but your customer service, I think, is way up there compared to others. It's just amazing. I just love going in your store because the customer service, and guess where the customer service comes from? It's not coming from you guys. No offense. So tell us about how did you guys get involved in that? What's the history look like?
You want to go first?
Well, I mean, so I've been with Chick-fil-A, it'll be 8 years in September. And then before I joined the company, I was a fan of the brand. I love the food, right? I mean, you all have been there hopefully, and you love the way you feel when you come into a Chick-fil-A and someone makes eye contact with you, right? And so teaching that to teenagers, it's difficult, it's awkward, they don't really want to do it, right? But that's part of our standards, right? Like when someone walks in, you're greeting them with eye contact. And so part of Chick-fil-A's shared vision as a company is to be the world's most caring company. And so it kind of ties back into treating people as people, right? And at Chick-fil-A, if you've been there, we don't give you a number when you get an order, like everyone has a name. We want people to be felt and known and seen as people. So we get your name so that when you come back, we can say, oh, hey, Dan, welcome back. You're gonna have that number 1 with the Coke, the Chick-fil-A sauce, right? And so all of that ties into helping people just see people as people and just treat them with honor, dignity, and respect.
Yeah, and then beyond that, I mean, Truett Cathy, which I don't know how familiar you guys are with him, he's our founder, but you know, I was about to go off on a tangent. I'm gonna try to stay focused. But essentially, if you look back at kind of like the legacy that he left and what he was about, like he was very much a man of faith. He was a man about the community. He was a man about his family. And then fourthly, a businessman. And so, you know, you can kind of see the way the operator model is with Chick-fil-A with you know, who they decide who's going to run a restaurant and how kind of like their values are an extension of the legacy that Truett Cathy, you know, left. And so two of our values as Chick-fil-A, as a corporation are better together and here to serve. And so that is not limited to like, we're better together with only people who look like me, or better together with only people who are think like me.
Or even just in our building, right?
Yes, yeah, it's like that is a value of diversity, because we're better together, we're not better individually. You know, and so the more diverse, the better, because we're getting different ideas, we're getting different thoughts, we're getting different ways of doing things, we're getting different operational ways of improvements. I mean, I do not want 100 versions of me in my restaurant, because that would be a very limited restaurant, you know, because some of the best ideas, like I would never have thought about that, you know, but it came from other people with different backgrounds, different levels of experience, different capabilities. And then secondly, here to serve, right? That's not a natural thing for a lot of people, for any of us growing up. You know, but what that does is that gives us a greater sense of purpose as to what we're doing, you know. And so the way I kind of look at it is like selling chicken is a means to be able to invest and be able to serve people. It's not all about the chicken. You can go to McDonald's, get chicken. You can go to, you know, any other, you know, organization to get chicken. But we're here for a purpose. We're here to invest in people. We're here to really pass down a lot of the core values that we've been able to learn as a result, and pass that down, and we get to build up the future leaders of tomorrow and send them out. Yeah. You know, and that's a variety, that's a diverse group of people that we get to do that with. And so, you know, that's the thing that I'm passionate about. And so that's always a challenge, is like, because I'll be honest, I don't think we've been super intentional with like actively kind of seeking some of those things. I don't think it's kind of happened. But now it's like, it gives me an opportunity to kind of like look out and like see, just based off of the few people that we have, how can we press into this even more so? You know, I think other businesses would benefit that as well.
So it's not a faith-based model, it's more customer service oriented service. Is that 100%? Because I love the way they make you feel.
Yeah. So the my pleasure, right, that people know Chick-fil-A for, it didn't, of course, like anything didn't happen overnight. It was about a 10-year process that Truett kind of led into his team in Atlanta and told them that they have an operator meeting every year, all the operators. And at one of those meetings, he told them, you know, I want to start saying my pleasure. And every time, you know, someone says, thank you, I want you to say my pleasure. So they practiced literally 10 years it took to build that to be second nature. But right, the customer service piece. So what happened was Truett was visiting a Hilton, a Ritz-Carlton. And someone said my pleasure to him. Simply, I don't know what the bellboy had done or something, but Truett said thank you. And that gentleman said my pleasure, and it just really hit Truett. Like, wow, okay, like it meant something to him. And so he wanted it to be carried on throughout the Chick-fil-A's and operator model to include it for team members to say my pleasure, not just like a, oh, okay, yeah, you're welcome for giving me that drink, right? Like he wanted it to have a meaning.
You know,
Please, no, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say, you know, in addition to, you know, the values-based proposition of, you know, what we're talking about, there have been multiple studies through the years on how businesses that have diverse hiring practices and employ people with disabilities, their bottom line is actually better. And there was recently, it was an article in Forbes just this past December that had some updated statistics. And so, and Bill, I'll be happy to send that link if folks are interested in that. That again, companies do better again with their bottom line. Turnover is decreased. Now we're talking in generalities, but generally, folks with intellectual and developmental disabilities, they have a lot of longevity. So turnover is decreased with that. And it just, and it helps again, you know, as you're talking about with the values, that other employees feel more valued by their company when they see their company valuing other people. So it's always good to have, you know, some of that research, you know, and some of the actual data behind it as well. And there's also some really good resources for businesses as they embark upon this. There's an organization and a website called the Job Action Network, and it's got a lot of really specific ideas for helping employees, kind of like what you were talking about, being, you know, having somebody new come in and think, oh, wow, I thought this was how I should describe this task, but here's a way that it really needs to be described. And so this Job Action Network, they've got a lot of different toolkits for businesses. Vocational rehabilitation, it's part of the Health and Human Services Division of the state government. There are vocational rehabilitation offices in every county, and there are individuals with disabilities can work with vocational rehab, and they sometimes will provide a job coach who can go with that employee to the business and work with them for a few weeks and things like that. Now, it's the government, it's a process, but for those of you with your businesses, if you're thinking about getting involved with that, I think kind of the two main recommendations I could have are reaching out to schools and high schools. All public high schools will have classes for individuals with disabilities, and almost all of them in that 16 to 22, because kids can't stay longer in high school, are looking for places like you guys were for their folks to get job experience. Also with vocational rehab, they look for businesses that they know will be good partners. So when they have somebody coming in looking for a job, they know that your business is looking for this and they can partner with you and have that job coach. So there's a lot of good resources. Again, beyond the fact that it's wonderful to be in a room with so many people talking about values, because that doesn't happen a lot, you know. This is this very special place and time that we're having. But beyond that, we're all running businesses, whether they're for-profit or nonprofit. We're all business people, and we have to keep that in mind. And there's some really good data and resources out there for us.
So much. Please jump in.
Recognizing that diversity is not just about disability, not just about race, not just about color. It's also about political views or religion and other things. Your two companies particularly have had a lot of political activity that is, you know, not necessarily the most, you know, it's partisan. I will say. So how do you address that in your own work environments if the employee is of a different value system of political views or whatever? Because I know your organization particularly is Christian based, and then Ben and Jerry's has had a lot of, in the news about political views. So I'm interested in that as well, as because that is a portion of diversity. And does everybody is like-minded in your organization? Do you ask people if they're Christian, if they're coming in to apply for a job with you? I wonder if we can move the conversation for just that one question.
I can, so we are an independently owned franchise of Ben & Jerry's. So there's corporate Ben & Jerry's in Vermont, and a company called Unilever bought Ben & Jerry's. So there's all kinds of layers to us. So my answer to that is corporate does their thing and I sell the ice cream. And so as a local, and which, in some ways you can't detach yourself from that, because as a franchise, you're attached to them, which you get the benefit of and all. But so specifically for us and at Davidson, I can say, some of the choices that Ben & Jerry's has made are not choices we would have made, and we are still free. And from our franchise agreement, we're free to run things how we run it. And so we don't discriminate, or we don't ask anything about religion or politics or anything like that. And these are mostly high school and college age. And they're free to talk about whatever they want, and they do sometimes, but for the most part, they're oblivious to what's going on in the world, which is for the good and the bad. But as a policy, we don't have any cans as far as any of that.
And kind of piggybacking, like it's a similar model. I mean, the Chick-fil-A, the corporate, the store center is in Atlanta, but we are like independent franchises basically. But like we don't, in terms of an interview, we never bring any of that up. I mean, I think that there is I think it's easy to kind of paint a brush because of Drake Cathy or things that have been said about like, well, this is what everyone believes, and this is what the general consensus is, and that's just not the case. I mean, there are operators across the country that have differing sexual orientations or religious views or whatever, racially different, and so I think that's a common misconception that we're all a bunch of Christian people that think and act this way, and that's just not the case. I think what you do see is a manifestation of like the investment that we try to make into our team members, whether they are in different channels or different lanes. So I think that's I would just say a misconception about it.
Let's get one more question. Then Dan, I want to bring you in terms of what your son is now 24, 25. Is that
20, he's almost 24.
24. I'd like to just if you can walk us back in history just a little bit about the challenges that he's had and he has to overcome. In particular, his particular case I'd like to look at. But let me get one more question here before you go.
I just want to say we are teachers in the high school at Community School of Davidson, and we teach students with intellectual disabilities. And so I just wanted you to have an idea, like up until they are in 12th grade, they focus mostly on academic skills like every other student, whether that's functional academics versus algebra or something like that. And then after that 12th grade year, we start focusing on more what they're going to do after school. So that's job. So like we're here because we're interested in finding other people in the community that are willing to do internships with our students. And because once they graduate, you have parents who are like, what do I do now? There's not a school for them to go to all day. What do I do now with them? And so when they leave us, they need to be prepared to have a job and contribute back to society, whether that's making money, whether that's also volunteering, but they feel that enrichment, that they are a positive contribution to our society, which they are. They have, I think, I was just thinking like, what is so great about having my students in your job setting? And then I think of each one of my students, I think of such amazing things about them. I have a student who comes in every morning, he's like Sam, 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 like he has the most infectious personality, and that would be a person you would want in your setting because he would just bring such positivity to you. They're hard workers. They'll do exactly what you say. There's a million things. But when we have them, we come with them. You would have a job coach with them. So we're not just giving them, dropping them off and say, put them to work. We're there, we help you, work through that. And many times even after they, like she said, they do have job coaches that make sure, but if we could get them started on a job that they actually love, and we tried different ones, like John, one of my students is working at Ben & Jerry's right now. Next year, we're gonna talk and maybe he'll continue that one and add something else, like he loves animals, so maybe I can find something for him at an animal shelter or a vet's office, but just to find something that interests him and something he can do after. And I just wanted you to keep that in mind, that you're not on your own, especially when high school is involved, because we go there with you, we communicate with them, we teach you how to work with them. But it is something that you're making a huge impact, not on just my students' life, on their family's life. And I just wanted you to keep that in mind.
And I'll say, that first kid, Ryan, we were making it up as we went, and he would take recycling to the trash and he would go to the post office. So if you're looking at your businesses and thinking, what can this person do or what can they do? You might figure it out as you go. It might be as simple as going to the mail or filing for you or stocking water bottles into cases. I don't know what your business is, but the school, specifically Community School of Davidson, like they said, we'll be there with them and we'll help them do it. And then you might figure out they're more capable. Let's try this. So don't be afraid to think, I have an office. What could he do or what could she do?
Like Josh, when he first went there, she has him go to the post office and pick up her mail. And his mom was like, can he do that? Like, just be on his own and go. But, we kind of scaffold it where our assistant walks a little bit behind him. Then she's, around the corner where he totally can do it now independently. He can find the mailbox. He can take out the stuff. He knows what to do. So it's like a scaffolding and teaching them how to do it, which his mom is so proud now that he can go to the post, he can find the post office, he can get find the mailbox, he can get the mail out, and he's doing it independently.
That's something. Now, you guys were the school, the community school, Davidson. Just want to make sure that you guys want mucky muck government. Okay.
But there's a lot. I know how to sing program. Pine Lake, all of them in the areas are interested in those kind of internships.
It's incredible. And I like what you were saying earlier, Melanie, about how far we've come. Because I know when I was coming up, I won't tell you how old I am, but as I was coming up as a student, we had some people who were disability. You could physically see their disability, in wheelchairs, or they were blind, or they were, hard of hearing, or had limitations in terms of hearing. And we as kids used to make fun of them and call them names. And we had all kinds of crazy names for them. And even people who had intellectual disability, we didn't know. We just call them slow. And the biggest joke that I really cringe when I hear it is they arrived at school on a small school bus.
Yeah.
And so all of that kind of stuff is when I was coming up is what we had to deal with in terms of disability. But look how far we've come.
Yes.
And I love hearing you guys talk about.
And Community School of Davidson really tries to include everyone. And like next year, we're going to have a coffee shop in our school, and it's going to be run by our students and the regular ed students, and they're all going to be mixed in, and we're selling it to the regular ed students. And so if, the whole idea of inclusion and diversity and accepting everybody.
One more thing. One of students I used to have when I first started at CSD, took him on a couple of internships. And the other day I was going through your drive-through and saw him out there sweeping up.
You kidding? The student you were talking about?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I just wanted to let you know how much that that's all I've thought about, because I don't know if you know his story, when he was born, he was not supposed to ever walk. And now he was sweeping up in your parking lot. And it just made me feel like, wow, this is amazing. Look at this, look at him out there. And he wasn't supposed to walk. And I don't know, you'll have to get him to tell you the story, but I mean, it just, as a teacher and looking back and having spent that time with him, it was just amazing. So thank you for giving him that opportunity. So it's an amazing kid.
He is, yeah.
And tell us a little bit about, go back in history just a little bit.
Well, my son, he's lived here his entire life, and it's probably because of him we're still here, because you got me choked. I know. The community has really embraced him, and I can't go any place where people don't know who he is. Hey, Jimmy, when he was smaller, it was really kind of concerning because we go into the post office at Davidson, hey, Jack, and I'd have to pull him close to you, like, that's my art teacher, okay. But, we had some struggles at the beginning at Cornelius Elementary, but we worked through it, and it was just smooth running all through high school. He did the occupational course of study, which is sounds like what you do. All CMS does it. They go out into the community and do volunteer work, like at Petco. They learn how to stock shelves. They go to a hotel and maybe vacuum, and they go to different businesses on a regular basis and learn certain skills. When he graduated, we're like, now what? We looked at some of the colleges. There's this organization called thinkcollege.net, thinkcollege.net. And there are programs in over 200 colleges and universities, residential programs, where if a child can make it in past the interview process and like a trial, maybe weekend long camp to see how they would live on campus independently, there's a chance they could get in. They pay the same tuition. They just have it like at Western Carolina, it's really good. They have angel students who may be special ed students, and they will kind of keep an eye on these kids. They'll take them to class. They'll work with them on homework. It's just really inclusive. Jack did not do that because he was a little immature, couldn't keep his face out of his phone, but he is at CPCC. They have a program like that. He rides the bus, the 77X into town. It's off at 4th and 3rd and McDowell, walks to campus, CPC Central Campus. And he's really good at getting around. He'll ride the blue line to work. He works on Camden Road in South End. And I can't say enough good things about Biddy and Bose, because when they opened, they hired 30 people with special needs, but also the parents had a community then too. That's important. It's one thing to hire a child and then the parents are still out there, but if you can hire a group and the parents can talk and we'll have a Facebook group, hey, my child is having an issue with this, anyone have any ideas? And it's a community, and it's a community within the employees too. So the more you can hire, the better. It would be nice to see, I'm really thankful for everyone who does hire. It seems like it's very food services heavy. Like my son would be thrilled to work over at Carolina Customs and help people trick out their trucks. Hint, hint. Everybody has to be full there. But there are just so many things these kids can do. And you can't look at it and say, this kid probably can't do this. There's this one kid at Biddy and Bose, and that's my church. I'll go to Biddy and Bose and he drops all this wisdom on you. It's like, wow, he is deep. It's just fascinating. It's just, you don't know what they know until you sit down and have a conversation with them.
That's right. And I just, anybody that can answer this question, if you had 5 things you wanted to tell a business about people living with disabilities, what would you say to them? Just give me 5 things. I mean, you guys have said it already, but let's sum it up, make it within that 5 things that you might tell them if they came to you and said, you know what, I'm thinking about doing this, but what would really benefit us?
Don't make it harder than it is. Start simple. For good and bad, the expectation is low, I think, on your side. Like, not low, like too low, but they don't have to know everything. So kind of like I was saying, like maybe they can stuff boxes with water bottles, or they can, you don't have to think so big, just start small find out what they're capable of, what they're not as good at, what you can shore them up on, and then build on it.
Yeah. Did you spend 4 hours trying to show somebody how to check in? Is that what you kind of think?
Well,
Just learn?
an hour, yeah.
An hour, oh, I'm sorry, an hour just to
You
figure
just
that
come in
out.
and,
So
you know,
that's-
get 4 numbers on a register.
So is that a patience on your part, or is it what is that?
It's a patience, it's not underestimating him, but not overestimating him. And, you know, when he first started, I wasn't counting on him for anything. You know, he was extra, but he continued for many years, and even his mom, after he graduated, said, could he still come in? I'll come with him, as opposed to the teacher that would normally. To give him something to look forward to give him something for his confidence, to give him something. So he did become like, oh, we're gonna save our boxes because Ryan comes tomorrow, or we're gonna save these certain tasks that can wait because he'll be here. So it's not like he was a drain, but it definitely was a slow start and figuring things out. So you have to have patience, and you have to be willing to slow yourself down, because if you're that person who's like, boom, 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 you're gonna have to be like, boom.
Talk about my wife. I'm sorry. Would you-
I will make a comment also about Karen is, in the times that I've been in there, Karen does not like for them to say, I can't. Or as a matter of fact, we had a girl who was also part of the Kiwanis Club. And she was afraid to climb the stairs. And she had to take the boxes that she had put together for cakes and put them on top of one of the Coke machines in there. Scared to death to climb on the ladder, just a simple step stool. And Karen was like, you can do this, Allie. I know that you can do this. And she did it. And she climbed up that ladder, and she was so proud of herself. It's a very simple thing, is climbing up a couple steps and putting a box up there. She'd never done that before. Nobody had ever pushed her to do that before.
They want to please people too.
Yeah.
You're the role model.
Yeah. And so that's what I admire about Karen, that she is a can do. You cannot, you are a can do because you can. And I'll help you. And I'm not going to leave you out there to do it by yourself. I'm going to help you.
It sounds like leaving them stretched too.
Yeah. Because they can.
But it does take time. It's gonna cost you some time. Yourself or your trainer or whoever maybe they're gonna work with. It definitely is gonna cost you something. But it's the rewards are well worth it.
Yeah, and then kind of piggybacking off of that, I mean, I think that we can typically, you know, we put our own limitations on people and what they're capable of doing. And I've noticed, like, the gentleman, you know, you're talking about is like, I gave him a little list of, like, you know, let's just see what he can do. So I gave him a cleaning list, and he was like knocking that thing out, and like the attention to detail. I was like, I haven't seen walls like this since like we opened up the restaurant. But it's like, you know, that's something I've learned is like, yes, I mean, it's an individual case by case situation, but in my experience, it's like a lot of them, they're more than capable than what we think that they're capable of doing in certain instances. And so he's incredibly dedicated, like he always has a smile, like people come in to see him, that sort of thing, and he's keeping a clean environment. I mean, they're far more, you know, positives, I would say, than negatives. Yeah, it's gonna maybe take a little bit to kind of get acclimated or up to speed, or once they kind of get their bearings down, but it's like they just go after that, in my experience at least.
I like that. Give them a list, make sure they understand exactly what you want.
Yes.
And what you expect from them. 3 other things.
3.
Well, so one other thing, though, just to kind of circle back to what Christian said earlier, is just the positivity and the joy that they bring, right? I mean, we just get a lot of teenagers and even adults who are just coming in the kitchen, they're doing the same thing. They're putting nuggets in a box, they're putting pickles on a bun, right? And it's just easy to get like lost in that monotony. But to then see these kids come through, like Christian said, they always have a smile on their face, right? And to see the team start to interact with those people, like our team members just light up and their demeanor changes. And so they definitely just bring that natural positivity and joy into the building, just being there.
2 other things.
I mean, I think that there's a balance between, like profitability and, and providing opportunities. But, I think that that's a question we all kind of have to ask ourselves as business owners is like, where is that line? And I think that a lot of us are typically kind of like lean towards the profitability side, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's like there's so many intangible things that you get to experience on a day-to-day basis. Like I know that the couple that we have, like they brighten my day. It's like I can only, and they brighten other people's days. And as I go back, to one of my original things, it's like in a lot of ways, like they're an inspiration because I get to use them as examples with teenagers who have everything in the world who are miserable, potentially. And it's just like, look at how so-and-so is living their life. And yet, like, this is what they have to go through, and like, that doesn't hinder them, so it provides teaching points as well.
Yeah.
I would say, for sure.
Need
Definitely.
one more thing.
Okay, one more thing. All right.
Stuck on this slide.
I mean, I think
Yeah.
the big picture is who do you want to be as a person, not just in your business? Like, what is your value set and where, I'm assuming whether you own your business or you run your business or you're blessed in some kind of way to be here to have your afternoon and get free chicken. Like, so even if there's not a business benefit, if there's not a tax write-off, if there's not all of those kind of things, like, what's your responsibility to give back in this world at this level? You can throw money at things, you can donate to nonprofits, like that's good, but do you have skin in the game? Do you have the wherewithal to, just to sacrifice some of your own comfort or your own whatever? Because like it is gonna cost you some in time and effort. So, but what is in you that wants to do even just a little bit to give back to all that you've been blessed with? So.
Yeah, Melanie, I'm gonna leave you with the last word as we close. What would you say to the audience, or even to someone like Bill, who has been thinking about this for a while and decided to do this panel? And it's just such a good thing to do. And I wonder what you would say as you conclude us, bring us together.
That's a responsibility. This has been an amazing panel. I'm going to come back to what I opened with. People first. It is the person first. And we'll get back, to our values and who we are and who we want to be. And it's the people first. All of us, I'm sure, have had uncomfortable conversations or conversations we didn't think we would need to have with an employee or something like that. And we're going to have some pain points. We're going to have some things that are going to take time. We're going to have some things that make us uncomfortable, even if we don't do any of this. But when we do this, the rewards are astronomical. And so we're not losing anything. We're going to be doing some of the same stuff we always do. And look who is going to benefit: individuals that we're not currently reaching, but now we are, our team members, ourselves, our community. It's just out there, people first. So thank you all so much. I appreciate it.
And one of the things that we say a lot in the Diversity Council is that you can see this as a problem, or you can see it as an opportunity. And I think for a lot of businesses, this is such a huge opportunity, and not just see it as a problem we got to overcome. This is, look at all of what we get. Bill, I'm gonna throw it back over to you.
Dan, our next program coming up, do you want to share, or I will, but you feel free.
Well, yeah, what we have is a couple of things. Melanie, why don't you share the things that we have coming up, if you don't mind? We have like three additional workshops coming up over the course of about each month. We're going to be doing something differently. Melanie, you wanted to say?
Yes, on July 19th, we've got the culture appreciation and diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we're working on getting panelists. We're still working on that, Cheryl? Okay. And then on October 18th, we've got sexual identity in the workplace. And we already have a potential guest panelist for that. And then November 22nd, we're going to talk about race relations and civil rights legislation in the workplace. And going back a little bit, in August, we're going to have our annual Women's Diversity Conference, and that's going to be at the Peninsula Club from 9 to 3. So August 11th, the Peninsula Club, 9 to 3. So it's our annual Diversity Women's Conference. So please put that on your calendars, tell folk about it. Can't wait to see you guys there. And did I miss anything? Did I get everything?
I think so. Kecia, I want to go back to something you said. Steve and I are involved in our action club. We've been doing this. I've been doing this since 2006. We meet fourth Friday at 7 o'clock. And I got to tell you, I usually go to Rock Hill every weekend. I have a farm down there. And college football is in fall. And I tell Rod Beard that God made me a Gamecock to keep me humble. But I do like to go down to our football games, and sometimes they kick off at noon. So 7 o'clock on a Friday night is not the best time in my life to necessarily be in a meeting. But it worked. It worked best for the parents because that's the time they want to be able to regroup and the young people come in. I call them my kids. They're not kids. They're over the age of 18, but I still call them my kids. And we've been doing this since 2006. Steve's been put up with it for 15 years, 16 years. But I'll tell you, and going back to exactly what you said, Kecia, when you might be stuck out in congestion on I-77 and you're in this traffic, or maybe you've got a customer that just gives you the sin, or a chamber member is not having the best day, or all kinds of things that can come into our life that makes us generally unhappy. And then you come to this meeting on a 7 o'clock on a Friday night, and you're with these young people who have every reason in the world not to be happy. And they are so excited to be there. I mean, you can't get them to be quiet. They just love being there. They love doing things. We're going to be this coming week. We're going to be Friday. We're going to be doing cards for Make-A-Wish, not Make-A-Wish, Margie Cowell's organization, Little Smiles. But delivering the Christmas cards to folks in the assisted living centers and just doing things together. Whether it's going bowling, which they love to go bowling over here in Huntersville. They love to go out to the ice cream shop and to get some ice cream and putt, but doing things together and seeing the expression on their faces, it just gives you a perspective on life. And it's that joy you were talking about, that sense of optimism. So I thank our panelists, number one, for employing some of the special needs that you do. We have Publix does a fantastic job, Harris Teeter, Food Line, Walgreens. We had a program with the Chamber of Commerce about 4 years ago with MSC, who goes out and they actually target various people to come work for them. So we do have some fantastic employers in the Lake Norman market. But I want to thank our panelists for spending time today and everybody who showed up and everybody who contributes and volunteers time to put back into your community. So thank you very much, and everybody have a great time the rest of the week. And thank you, Dan.
Thanks.